AM1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Congressman begins now. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and WOBMAM.com.
The final budget of President Obama's administration promises to be a mix of pleasure, such as unprecedented spending to attack America's opiate addictions with treatment and education, and pain, such as consideration for a new round of base realignment and closure that includes the Joint Base McGuire Lakehurst, home of the KC-10 and refueling craft, angling to become the home of its successor in that process and the global situations. Shore Representative Tom MacArthur has been paying close attention to all of that and practically dictate increases, not cuts, in defense spending. And what of the men and women who have placed their own lives on the line to protect ours? The Congressman's been in deep dialogue with veterans in the 3rd District and succeeded in advancing his bill for permanent, reliable funding of the security outside the 9/11 memorial. He's been on the ground with small business owners, recognizing their accomplishments and getting a grasp of their obstacles in the past several hours. He's also heard the buzz on the south end of the district at Waretown Fire Company 1. For the next hour, he hears what's on your mind and tells you what's on his as we ask the Congressman. It's very good to have you back.
Well, thank you, Tom. Good to be back.
And you're not gaining any weight with all this running around.
Well, that's right. I'm always in motion.
Yeah. Well, Waretown, I understand, had a pretty good turnout.
We did. It was terrific. Over 100 people, and it's heartbreaking sometimes. People come with very deep personal needs. Some things I can help with. Some things are harder, and others come with broader sets of concerns about things that people feel like I should be working on, and they're always helpful for me, Tom, to talk to residents and find out really what they want me to be working on. What
sort of issues were they bringing up? How does it help you formulate or reshape your view of the district?
Well, I had a lot of veterans today, and so that always reminds me of the importance of standing with our troops, both those that are engaged now and those that have served before. I had folks out today that were dealing with issues with the bay and with water bodies around them, and just not necessarily related solely to Sandy, but related to just what's happening in this area with beach erosion and other things. And I'm working aggressively on some of those things. And so just a host of issues that people come with.
Now, you saw firsthand the beach erosion. You're right here in Toms River. I'm sure you took a look at Ortley after the
I did.
I
was there immediately after the blizzard with the lieutenant governor.
And so that none of this is lost on you, I'm sure.
No, but it's not that the issues are always brand new to me, but when I hear them from the people that are being affected by them, it just brings it home to me. And this is why I ran for office, and this is what I work at every day, to try to do things big and small that improve people's lives. And not every issue is a big public policy issue. I would say that 10, 15 of the people that I talked to today just had a very personal issue, struggling to get through the Social Security Administration, struggling with the VA, benefits cut off, for reasons that seemed unfair, and I really encourage people to come to my Toms River office here in Ocean and our Marlton office in Burlington County. We can help. We have helped. Last year we got 70,000 letters and emails that we responded to, but we opened 1,700 cases where people had very specific issues, and we helped them run the traps with some agency of the federal government. We got people back pay. We got people pensions going forward, disability determinations, things that they should have been able to get just because the government should have done the job right, but it didn't. And, and it's my privilege to help them work through some of those things.
I imagine for a lot of them it's kind of a revelation because they're used to going to a municipal office or, on the outside, maybe a state legislative office. But to get to a congressional office and actually, because Washington is such a remote thing, to be able to generate some sort of activity on that level has to be empowering to some extent.
It is, and it should be, because Washington shouldn't be remote. I'm right here in Toms River, and I am the closest representative to the people in the national government. That's why I run for office every 2 years, because the member of Congress is meant to be the closest. It's called the People's House, the House of Representatives, and my goal is to make Washington accessible to people. I can't fix everything, but I can fix a lot of things, and I'm dogged about helping people get a fair shake. Let's
check with Mark. I believe we had a call coming in. Is there a call on there? All righty, we're going to slap on some headsets here for you, sir. Okay. There you go. We didn't need them up until now. Let's bring in our first caller. Good evening. You're on Ask the Congressman. Welcome. And what's your first name? Where are you from?
This is John from Brick Township.
John from Brick Township. Fair tax.
Yes.
How are you tonight?
Very good. I just wanted to, if the congressman can hear me, I just wanted to thank him for meeting with our team back in October. And I think we had a very productive discussion about H.R. 25, the fair tax. And I just wanted to say, if he has any further questions about the fair tax, I'd like to see if we could set up a meeting with with our national briefing team. They go to Washington Congress every month, and if he could alert Caitlin, I'll give her a call and see if we can set up a meeting with that team.
Well, John, I did appreciate our meeting, and I came into that, as you know, committed to the fact that I think taxes need to be fairer, flatter, and lower, which is why this president's most recent budget is so offensive to me, because it's in the opposite direction in every case. And I continue to look at every way that we can actually achieve that. And as you know, it has to pass the House, it has to pass the Senate, it has to pass the President. And so finding the right tax reforms that can actually get passed into law is what I'm focused on.
Okay. If I could make one other point. I'm a little disappointed, though. You mentioned the budget that Congress did pass that budget. It funded Obamacare and Planned Parenthood. It raised our debt. It's going to raise our debt over 10 years. And just to name one other thing that I'm concerned about, it extended some of the welfare programs from the stimulus, 2010 stimulus that was set to expire in 2017. And I'd like to, hear your thoughts on that.
Well, John, it's a great question. I was actually talking about the president's most current budget, but let me respond to your question. You were talking about the large so-called omnibus that we passed in at the end of the year.
In December, right?
And and I to be quite honest, I voted holding my nose on that budget. Anytime a spending bill is that large, it should be cause for alarm for people. And there were things that I didn't like about it, and you mentioned them. But when I cast a vote, I'm always reminded that divided government requires compromise. What I just said about things having to pass the House, the Senate, and the President. And I believe strongly, even though the House has the power of the purse, we can never let that be an excuse for dysfunction. And the things in that bill that caused me to support it, and I think it was the right thing to do, one, it fully funded our defense. And the president's new budget is trying to gut defense once again. But it fully funded our defense for this year, including a pay raise for the troops. It added $11 billion for customs and border security. It included my defense amendments, 5 things that I had gotten in the defense bill. It kept Guantanamo Bay open and kept these dangerous people off our soil. it lifted the oil ban for the first time in 40 years since the 70s, which I think is important for us to be an energy exporter and not let other aggressor nations dominate that. And we got a lot of tax breaks. The things the president got, and you mentioned some of them, but the things the president got were just for this year. They weren't permanent. None of them were permanent. The things that we got were permanent. 2/3 of the tax breaks were permanent. Zero capital gains on startups, the R&D tax credit, the charitable tax credit, the state and local tax credit. All of these are permanent. We delayed the president's Cadillac tax, his health insurance tax, key parts of Obamacare. I could go on, John, for an hour. We got a lot of very important things in that bill, and you're right. There were things that I wanted to stop, or not to stop, but to make sure that no Syrian refugee was coming into this country without being properly vetted, to make sure they weren't a security risk. I wanted that much tighter.
Right.
What Planned Parenthood does is atrocious, and I would like to see it stopped. And things with Iran sanctions, we didn't get everything we wanted. We never do in a divided government, but sometimes you have to accept what can be done. And so that's a long answer, maybe longer than you wanted, but those are the reasons. Those are some of the reasons, John. I paid a lot of attention to the details in that bill, and those are some of the reasons I felt that I had to vote for it. Well,
okay, I accept your answers. I just would like to finally say that if you would consider maybe meeting with our national team, I'll give Caitlin a call, and maybe you could.
Well, that would be fine. Have her. You're welcome to call, and we'll see if we can make that work.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, John. You take care.
Thank you, John.
Right. Thank you, Tom.
Good night, sir.
Well, I might have stolen one of your questions, Tom.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. I've had a lot of people ask me about that, and it's difficult. I don't like every part of every bill I have to vote on. Mm-hmm. But I get to vote yes or I get to vote no. I don't get to vote I like this and I don't like that.
You don't get to choose off the menu.
I don't. And what I can do is try to influence legislation before it comes to the floor, and I do. I make amendments on bills. I do a lot of things to try to get what I think is important into a bill. But when it comes down to it, and I put my card in the voting machine, I get to vote yay or nay. And sometimes I have to balance things. In fact, often I have to.
John stole some questions, but I have a few more. And,
sure.
We'll get to them, and it's global and local. And we'll get to it right after this. Stick around, folks.
Call Congressman Tom MacArthur now, 732-505-1160. Ask the Congressman continues next. News Talk Radio, WOBM, AM 1160 and 1310.
The following ad is brought to you by TLC Resorts. All right, we're back with a New Year's resolution I know you're going to be able to keep. I promise. It's a complimentary 3 days and 2 nights in fabulous Las Vegas, along with 2 tickets to the hottest new game show in America, Lovers or Losers, with TV icon Todd Bridges. That's what I'm talking about. If you're ready to play, get ready to call this number, 844-21-PRIZE. Other than guaranteeing your arrival with a small refundable deposit, you won't be paying a dime for your accommodations. The game show producers are picking up the tab. They're spending millions on this Vegas giveaway. So here's the question. Remember the movie Casino, directed by Martin Scorsese? In it, Robert De Niro's playing Sam Rothstein, the guy the mob hired to run a casino in Vegas. He gets some help from a mob enforcer named Nicky Santoro, who, spoiler alert, things don't end well for. So, who played Nicky? Was it A, Joe Pesci, B, Nicolas Cage, or C, Dustin Hoffman? Got the answer? 844-21-PRIZE. For 3 days and 2 nights in Vegas. Call now. 844-21-PRIZE. That's 844-21-PRIZE.
Brought to you by TLC Resorts.
Now you can listen to Inside the Law anytime online at WOBMAM.com. Hosted by Robert Noby of Noby & Associates, your elder law attorneys, discussing topics like wills, estates, and various legal matters. Listen to Inside the Law at your leisure 24/7 by visiting the homepage at WOBMAM.com and clicking on the Inside the Law button. Now, 2 ways to hear Inside the Law. Every other Saturday morning on WOBM AM 1160 and 1310, or anytime at WOBMAM.com.
vet had them on antibiotics as well as steroids. Nothing worked.
The vet had given him a cortisone.
The vet prescribed an antihistamine.
The vet said that he had allergies.
The vet thought that Molly was just old.
The vet didn't know what to do.
The vet offered no success at all.
We probably spent at least $5,000 in vet bills.
I heard about Dynavite on this radio station.
DINOVITE.com.
859-428-1000. I just called my wife. I said, dear, you got to check out Dynavite.
The omega-3 fatty acids, zinc. There's flaxseed oil, the seaweed, the kelp.
6 days later, my dog's ear problems were cured.
The shedding has stopped and the itching has stopped.
Tons of energy, no more bad smell.
Everything we tried failed except the Dynavite.
The vet noticed that Sundance has a glossy coat now.
My vet was completely blown away. 859-428-1000.
859-428-1000.
DINOVITE.com.
From Ocean County to our nation's capital, talk to Congressman Tom MacArthur right now. 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Congressman on News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310, and WOBMAM.com.
And you're invited to join the discussion. Tom Mongelian with Congressman Tom MacArthur. And just before we get moving back into it, a note for you. If college costs weigh heavily on you, think of how heavily it weighs on your student, especially if there's no way to go out but alone. Or is there another way? Now, next week, in this room on the town square tonight, will be Dean of Admissions Justin Roy of Georgian Court University in Lakewood. He'll be telling us what's been done to bring affordability back to higher education, which is something you might even know something about. Probably. But before we get to any of that, I want to ask you about this new budget and the possibility of another round of closures, which doesn't look good from anywhere I'm sitting.
No, it doesn't. And I think it's disappointing that this president, at every opportunity, seems to want to gut our military. And this is no time to be doing that, Tom. This is a world that is spinning out of control, and America is holding not only our interests together, but holding regions of the world together, and we can't just abandon that. We got a no-BRAC provision. It was my amendment, actually, in last year's defense bill. Mm-hmm. So there is no BRAC this year that can even be put on the drawing board. But the president has put into his new budget for next year another round of BRAC. Now, we put in the defense bill last year that he had to come to us and give us a report of excess infrastructure. He hasn't done that. And the study that is being relied on to say that we have too many bases is now 11 years old. Think about how the world has changed in the last 11 years. And so, for me, it's irresponsible.
So he's basing this on something that's over a decade in age?
Yes. He's basing it, I believe, on the fact that he wants more domestic spending and less military spending. The source of, what supports that, I don't think matters as much. His priorities are domestic. And I understand that, but I disagree because, first of all, BRACs have not been shown to save money. They cause huge upfront costs. They destroy local economies. We saw that in Monmouth County. Mm-hmm. And they diminish our ability to project strength in a very dangerous world. So to cut defense spending as he wants to, $23 billion cut he's looking for in our base defense spending, I think is irresponsible. He cuts Homeland Security in the budget, which I think is irresponsible. And for the fourth year, he's giving our troops a pay raise that is less than the civilian sector. 1.6% is what he proposes. And again, as we started with, he wants another round of base realignment and closure. So I will fight it again, as I have since the day I walked into Congress, because I just think it's irresponsible. These bases, once they're closed, are gone. It's an asset that's gone. And it's not just that it's a locally critical issue. It is for us, obviously. Right. But this, to me, is a matter of national security, and Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst is exceptionally well positioned to help our eastern defenses in this part of the country. In fact, we're, as you mentioned at the very beginning when you were introducing the program, I I got a 2-year ban on retiring the KC-10 tankers, which is kind of the linchpin of the 80 missions at the base. So that's off the table. The president did put in his budget that he wants to retire them, but he can't. It's against the law. He'd have to get Congress to overturn last year's defense bill to do anything about that this year or next year.
Does that give you enough time then, or give
Precisely.
them enough time to bring in the KC-46?
That's exactly what I was aiming for, because the next round of basings for the KC-46 is going on this year. And I think a decision will probably come out of the Defense Department around this time next year. And we've gotten the list down to about 10 of us, and I intend to get it down to one of us and have it be this base and get those tankers here. We're well positioned for them. We've got a community that wants them. We've got a base that's a position to accept them, and so that's a high priority for me this year.
We have about a minute here, but I just wanted to explore in relation to that, the situation that Congressman Smith brought up this week with regard to the enriched uranium that left Iran on a ship, which is basically under Russian control.
Yeah, who knows where?
And no one really, and no one on the U.S. side, the ambassador, doesn't know where it is.
I watched Chris Smith's hearing. In fact,
it was must-see TV.
It really was. I told him the next morning I thought he did a terrific job. He was sharing the hearing. And the reality is we're trusting the Russians that they actually removed the uranium, and it's not possibly going back to Iran. I don't really trust the Russians enough, and I think it's a fair question. Where is it? Where is this uranium? How do we know that it's not parked on a Russian ship 2 miles off the Iranian coast? Because nobody seems to know where it is. Mm-hmm. And I simply don't believe the Russians. Iran is their ally, and they have their own agenda. So I think we have to keep asking questions that this administration doesn't seem to want to ask. How do we know that the terms of the deal are being kept?
And the other part of the deal is, now they get billions upon billions in taxpayer dollars from the U.S. with those lifting of sanctions. And in 10 years, or 15 at the outset, they can pretty much do whatever they want.
They have gotten over $100 billion of sanctions relief. Our own Secretary of State, Secretary Kerry, has acknowledged that, yes, some of that money is probably going to make it into the hands of terrorist groups. Mm-hmm. Hezbollah, Hamas, others that are proxies of Iran. We've talked about this before. This deal makes me angrier than anything I've witnessed in my time in Congress. It was so wrong-headed, and it's so against our interests. We threw our allies under the bus, and we're doing business with a country that chants death to America. It's insane to me.
All right, we're going to give you a chance to cool off here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to join the discussion, we will be right back. Stick around.
More with Congressman Tom MacArthur coming up next. This is Ask the Congressman. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
This is Marianne Levy, News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Broadcast from the Preferred Home Healthcare Studio. From skilled pediatric services to adult care, Preferred does it all. Preferred Home Healthcare with feeling.
The Jersey Shore's news leader. Listen online at WOBMAM.com, on the Radio Pup app for smartphones and tablets, and on air at 1160 and 1310.
News Talk Radio, WOBM.
Somebody that was going to go and show my parents that the best decision they ever made for their children was coming to America.
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley endorsing Marco Rubio for president.
I can't tell you how honored I am to have the support of your governor, because she embodies for me everything that I want the Republican Party and the conservative movement to be about, everything that it is about.
The two appearing together in suburban Columbia, South Carolina. Haley, considered a rising star in the Republican Party, has been very outspoken about her opinion of Donald Trump. A car bomb attack in the capital of Turkey.
Turkish officials say the target was a military convoy. Several vehicles were reportedly hit as they waited at a traffic light. At least 28 people were killed, more than 60 others injured.
Fox's John Huddy in the Middle East Bureau. No one's claimed responsibility for the attack. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Crisp and cool out there overnight. We'll see a much warmer weather pattern by the weekend. A few scattered clouds overnight, lows in the mid-20s. Mainly sunny weather, mid-upper 30s on Thursday. Then Friday, clouds mixed with sunshine, highs in the low 40s. We get to the weekend, it feels like early to mid-April. Intervals of clouds and sunshine. Highs over the weekend up in the low to mid-50s. The outlook for Monday, a mix of clouds and sunshine, highs up in the low 50s. My meteorologist Mark Thibodeau from the Weather Channel.
1160 and 1310 WOBM.
When teeth are lost, ongoing shrinkage of the jawbone occurs, making the face look older. Dental implants can slow or stop the process, and dental implants look and feel like your own natural teeth. I'm Dr. Ron Rotem, and I'm excited to tell you that dental implants eliminate the pain and discomfort of removable dentures. Among the many benefits of dental implants is that you can regain the capabilities you had with your natural teeth. No more ill-fitting dentures or fear of sliding dentures when you're eating or smiling. For a consultation on how you too can return to enjoying life without thinking twice about your teeth, call my office today.
Call Rotem Dental Care at 732-608-2500. That's 608-2500. And visit rotemdentalcare.com. That's rotemdentalcare.com. Rotem Dental Care, 355 Lakehurst Road, just off Parkway Exit 81, Toms River.
We love creating beautiful smiles. Rotem Dental Care.
Do you have $10,000 or more in federal student loans? Well, then you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven with one free call. That's right. If you're a teacher, nurse, police officer, firefighter, or work for a nonprofit, then you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven. The Student Loan Council wants to give you free information on all the student loan programs that can help. And the sooner you call, the faster they can help. Get the maximum forgiveness, loan reduction, or consolidation available. Plus, find out in the first free call what you qualify for. Loan forgiveness specialists are standing by to answer all of your questions for free. So stop worrying about your federal student loan payments. If you have more than $10,000 in federal student loans, this information could change your life. Call 800-537-6114. 800-537-6114. Wipe out your federal student loan debt. Discover how. Call 800-537-6114. That's 800-537-6114.
Hello, I'm Anthony Marquetta, Executive Director of the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. In the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, we utilized federal recovery funds to create thousands of affordable rental apartments throughout the state. Sandy-impacted residents who were displaced or experienced major damage from the storm will receive priority. I encourage you to see what's available now at njhrc.gov. That's njhrc.gov.
This message sponsored by the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Keep the questions coming. Call now to talk to Tom MacArthur, 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions at WOBM. Ask the Congressman continues now on News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310, and WOBMAM.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Tom Montrelli, and thanks for joining us tonight. And if you want to see any of the previous shows, don't forget they're always online. Stored away for you at WOBMAM.com. Let's talk a little bit. We went over this once, but the 9/11 Memorial Security Bill.
Yes.
That you got through. I remember. Okay, I'm old enough to remember when that wasn't even the World Trade Center yet. It was a bunch of rundown buildings and warehouses that, became the World Trade Center. And it took on an entirely different, the whole neighborhood took on an entirely different feel. And it's that way again. And but it's not the same this time because now there's something almost hallowed about it.
Yes, that's the
because
right
of what
word.
It's been through.
And
this bill really helps protect that aura.
Yes. I spent a good deal of my career in that neighborhood. My office for many years was right up the block, and I was in and out of those buildings all the time. And when they came down, I lost 2 colleagues, and every day I would take the ferry to work from New Jersey to New York, and I still remember how we'd come around Lower Manhattan, and a hush would come over the boat for months as autumn went into winter, and then winter went into spring, and it just really profoundly impacted me. And then for me to go to the site, and you said it right, it's hallowed ground, and to realize that there was no federally funded security. In fact, there was no state or local funded security. The site is being secured by private donations. And I've been there a few times. It's always packed. There's thousands of people, and somebody could walk in there with a bomb strapped to their back. And I'm not saying there's no security. There has been security, but
of course,
but somebody could slip in with a bomb and blow up hundreds of people. And for me, to have a national tragedy and have no national support, it seems to violate the fact that it's hallowed ground. We had, obviously thousands of people, nearly 3,000 Americans lost their lives, but we had hundreds of firefighters and police give up their lives to save others. And I think we have to honor the fallen, and we have to protect the living. And so I proposed, introduced legislation to make the 9/11 site a national memorial. And what's unique about it, perhaps, is that it doesn't take away control from the 9/11 Foundation, because they've done such a terrific job. These are people that were deeply affected that run the foundation. This gives, this allows for help with security and operations of the external site, and it allows the 9/11 Memorial to run the museum and to run the center there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a perfect kind of public-private partnership. It'll secure the site, and yet it saves the taxpayers a lot of money because they're not running the place.
And just so we understand, it takes the funding stream out of a nebulous area which relies on the volume of donations to a solid stream out of the Department of the Interior.
Well, and it does it in a way that doesn't add any taxpayer dollars. Before I proposed the legislation, I went to the chairman of the Interior Appropriations Committee in Congress and got a commitment that all of the funding will come out of the administrative buckets of the Department of Interior. So it'll get funded with a budget they already have, and we won't add to the tax burden, which is already too high in the country. And I think we're doing the right thing. We'll secure the site. I got some pushback from people who wanted the federal government to take it over. I got some, which I didn't want. I got some pushback from people who didn't want to spend any money. And but in the end, only 12 people voted against the bill, and it passed with overwhelming support. I had 84 co-sponsors, both the Republicans and Democrats, and I had good support from both sides of the aisle. And we got a bill that I think honors those who fell and protects those who visit the site, and I'm proud of it.
It's good to know that it's 15 years down the road this year, and
I know it's incredible.
The memory hasn't faded to the point where people don't care.
It changed our lives.
Changed everything.
Yeah.
We still have a call, Mark? Okay, we got a call, sir. Let's go see who it is. Welcome. You're on Ask the Congressman. Thanks for calling. What's your first name and where are you from? Could you turn your radio down, please? Alrighty. I guess we're going to get back to that.
Well, we had a call.
They were catching up to us. Good. At least we get a break, and we can move to the issue that just came up over the last couple of days, unfortunately, this past week, with the passing of Supreme Court Justice, and the move by the Republicans in the in the Senate. I don't know, is it all the Republicans or just the Senate Judiciary Committee? I know that they are the ones responsible for vetting a presidential nominee. But is it a blanket thing on the party's part? Or to just simply oppose whoever President Obama happens to come up with if he does? And I'm just interested in how you approach something like that, because you're not actually in that discussion, but it affects you.
Yes.
Some way.
Well, I first of all, it's individual senators that have declared this or that they think should happen. Now, one of them is, a leading senator, but there's been no official action that I'm aware of. I'll tell you what I think should happen, Tom. The president has a constitutional responsibility, and the Senate has a constitutional responsibility. And so I expect that the president will nominate a replacement. I think if he's smart and he's taking the temperature of the country, he'll realize he can't just nominate somebody that's molded in his image, a progressive that's going to try to overturn the direction of the court and try to legislate from the bench. If he nominates somebody like that, then I think he knows what to expect from the Senate. And I think that's probably why some of the senators were making comments. My hope would be that he would nominate a judge that would continue the direction that doesn't throw the court into chaos. And then I think the Senate will do its constitutional responsibility and advise and consent. And they get to give the president advice, and ultimately they have to consent or the nominee will not go through. And so that's what I believe should happen. I don't believe there should be any blanket shutting down of it. But on the other hand, the Senate is under no obligation to allow this president to put somebody on the Supreme Court that's going to give us a lifetime of progressive policies. That's not what the American people want. That's why they've elected a pretty conservative Congress. That's why we have Republicans have 32 of the governorships. People are tired of the government trying these grand experiments that end up costing the taxpayer mountains of tax and debt, and that that increasingly try to control their lives. And if the president goes in that direction, then it's not going to go well.
He has to be looking at the debates that are going on among the presidential nominee aspirants, I should say. And looking at how they're turning out and looking at who's leading in the surveys, that has to be telling him something about the mood of the country.
Well, it should be, but before I say what I'm going to say, I want to say one thing. I try very hard to work in a bipartisan manner, and I do. I work with colleagues on both sides of the aisle. But having said that, this president has not shown a great deal of willingness to work with Republicans. And he may see the mood of the country, but that doesn't mean he's going to respond to it. So I don't know what he'll do. I will say this. He just sent us a budget, and we talked about it a bit earlier on the defense side, but the front page of his budget was a beautiful mountain scene. It's kind of ironic because the budget is a mountain of debt, a mountain of taxes, and a mountain of spending. And that completely ignores the will of the American people. He doubles spending over 10 years. He increases the debt to $27.4 trillion over 10 years on what's now an $18 trillion economy. It is an irresponsible manifesto, in my view, of trying to move the country much more in a tax and spend direction. And I guess he thinks that's his legacy, to try to move the country into a bigger federal government that controls more of our lives. To me, that is the exact opposite of what we need. And I think he's ignoring the mood of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what he'll do with the Supreme Court justice. I can tell you what I will do. I have no say on the Supreme Court justice. That's the Senate. But I do have say on the budget. And I will fight against government getting bigger and more powerful because that is what's crushing our country today. That's not what's going to free the American spirit American innovation, American creativity. That's not what's going to get people back to work and grow the greatest companies on earth. And I know it because I haven't spent my life in the Washington bubble. I've spent it in the business sector, growing jobs, and I will fight with everything I have in me against that sort of mindset because it's wrong-headed and it's bad for our country.
How long have you got to hash out all the figures and rework this thing and send it back to him?
I actually don't think we should rework his budget at all. I mean, he has sent us, I think, a liberal progressive manifesto. That's his budget. I think we should start over, and Congress appropriations start with Congress. We have the power of the purse, and we've been working on a budget even as he has. And I expect our budget actually will be done in the coming weeks. I don't think we should change our budget because of his. I think we should just put ours out there. You know, the budget's a beautiful thing. The president doesn't have to vote on it. It's the one piece of legislation that if the House and the Senate agree, that's the budget. Now he has to vote on. He has to agree on individual appropriations bills. But our budget is our budget, and I think we should set a conservative one.
Do your numbers on the Republican side work in your favor here?
Well, our budget balances in 10 years. We agreed as a Republican conference, that we would not put out a budget that doesn't balance in 10 years. His budgets, he hasn't balanced one yet in 7 years, and this one is the most unbalanced one we've seen. Our budget will balance. We'll tell the American people how we intend to pay down the debt and get the economy growing again.
Yeah, the debt is the thing that scares me.
It should.
I mean, it's awesome. It's jaw-dropping in its size. And it's not even 20 years ago we had a budget, a surplus in this country.
You know, he's not in office anymore, but our old chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, our lead military person, was asked what he thought the greatest threat to national security was, and he said our debt. Mm-hmm. Because he realized that as long as we're digging ourselves a deeper and deeper hole, sooner or later there's going to be enormous pressure on our ability to fund our national security. And he's right. So we have to get our debt under control.
All right, sir. We are going to break for a minute, and then we're going to finish up with you tonight.
All right.
And we'll see. And you got one more chance to give us a call, so get to the phones, and we'll be with you in just a minute.
More with Congressman Tom MacArthur coming up next. This is Ask the Congressman. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
Do you have $10,000 or more in federal student loans? Well, then you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven with one free call. That's right. If you're a teacher, nurse, police officer, firefighter, or work for a nonprofit, then you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven. The Student Loan Council wants to give you free information on all the student loan programs that can help. And the sooner you call, the faster they can help. Get the maximum forgiveness, loan reduction, or consolidation available. Plus, find out in the first free call what you qualify for. Loan forgiveness specialists are standing by to answer all of your questions for free. So stop worrying about your federal student loan payments. If you have more than $10,000 in federal student loans, this information could change your life. Call 800-537-6114. 800-537-6114. Wipe out your federal student loan debt. Discover how. Call 800-537-6114. That's 800-537-6114.
Have you checked your Google search results lately? Search results are usually the first impression that people form of you or your business. So make sure that they create a positive impression with Reputation Defender, a service from Reputation.com. What the internet says about you can have a big impact on your life and your livelihood, even if it's not true. Fortunately, you can now control how you look online and in online search results with Reputation Defender. Call 1-800-432-9197 now. That's 1-800-432-9197 for your free reputation analysis. If you have negative material from an ex-employee, upset patient or former client, newspaper article, legal issue, social media, or other source showing up in your search results, you can combat it with Reputation Defender. Our dedicated experts and patented technology can help make your online search results look their best. Call 1-800-432-9197 for a free consultation. That's 1-800-432-9197. 1-800-432-9197.
Congressman Tom MacArthur is here to talk to you. 732-505-1160 or tweet your question at WOBM. This is Ask the Congressman. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and WOBMAM.com.
Just a few minutes left with Congressman MacArthur, and we've really covered a lot of ground tonight. This is great.
We have. I always enjoy it.
Now, one of the things that I very rarely get out of the building for anything fun anymore. But, one of the things that it was go next door to Uncle Dude's donut shop, where you stopped in, and actually, I didn't realize how long he had been in business.
Yeah.
It's 3 years, and the guy pushes out a ton of pastry.
Yeah.
And you acknowledged that. And I know it meant a lot to him. I could see it in his face.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we order those. We get them at the office because the office is just a walking distance. But his donuts are incredible. They melt in your mouth. And I wasn't there just to buy donuts, though. I was there to acknowledge him. And I try when I'm back in the district to visit small business, big business. I try to get around and really understand what our businesses are facing and where government is helping and hurting. I try just to encourage them where I can, but I never want to lose that touch with them because that's the heartbeat of our economy.
I heard you were someplace in Lacey, too.
I was, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He had been inducted, the sensei had been inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. And I brought him a congressional proclamation, just acknowledging that, and so, that stuff matters. Just getting around and understanding what's going on. I mentioned earlier with one of the callers that we've done some things in legislation to help small business. We've made a lot of 2/3 of the tax breaks that had to be passed year by year. We made permanent, and that matters to a business person. When I've experienced this in my own life, Tom, that when you can see around the corner a little bit, you feel empowered to make decisions. If you have no sense of how you're going to get treated on this or that tax issue, it's hard to make long-term decisions. You kind of wait and see. And so it's really important, I think, for me to try to figure out where the federal government can be helpful. 7 out of 10 new jobs comes from small businesses. There's 28 million of them in the country, and we have to help them. We can't just focus on the big guys. We've got to focus on the local businesses that make our communities thrive.
That first year or so, when you've got all that invested in there, that's the tightrope.
And that's when they're most vulnerable. Most businesses don't go out of business because they're not making a profit or they're not serving a need. They run out of money.
Yep.
And we can't have the federal government making it harder. One of the things I was very proud of that we passed into law was a 0 capital gains rate on the buyout of a startup business, which means that when somebody starts a business today, they can be assured that if they build something that's worth buying, that somebody can buy their business and not pay capital gains tax. That's a big leg up for a small business, and that's now passed into law. So I'm hoping that that'll encourage people to take the risks, and there are risks in starting something.
But with a good plan, it's a calculated risk. We have our call, Mark? Okay, one more. Got time for one more. Let's go to the phones. Good evening. You are on Ask the Congressman with Congressman MacArthur. What's your first name and where are you from?
My name is Russ. I am from Toms River, New Jersey.
Thanks for calling, Russ. What's on your mind tonight?
Congressman MacArthur, I want to commend you on all the help that you have done for Sandy families, and you have helped our family out with one of the SBA bills that you put into Assembly. And a lot of people still aren't really realize that a lot of families still need help, especially in the Toms River area, so I commend you on that. I know you have worked hard for that.
Well, Russ, I appreciate it, and honestly, things are moving way too slow for me. The problems that I continue to see, even the SBA bill that you mentioned is still not signed into law, and and we've just got to continue to fight this fight until we get every last Sandy victim back home. And then I want you and I want listeners to know I'm not done on Sandy. There are reforms that need to be made to the National Flood Program and to the Disaster Assistance Bill. It's called the Stafford Act, but the thing that determines how the government responds to disasters, there are reforms necessary to make sure that we don't have the same kind of problems that we had in Sandy ever again. And
well, that's exactly what people in this area want you to work on, and we know you have. So I just want to commend you on that.
Well, I appreciate it, Russ.
And I have a question. I would like to know your feelings on how Governor Christie handled the flooding down in Cape May. Being affected by the flooding here from Sandy, a group of us were appalled by him not helping out or going down there after the flooding. I'd like to know your views on that. I think that's important for people to know how he didn't go down and help at the time.
Well, I'll only say this. I wasn't in Cape May to see what did or did not happen, but I will say that any kind of flooding or any kind of anything that happens in the 3rd Congressional District, you can be assured that I will make sure that that everyone is here and working to fix it. And so, for example, after that same storm, I was in Ortley Beach the next day with the commissioner of the DEP, with the lieutenant governor, and with local officials, the mayor of Toms River, Tom Kelleher, and we were assessing damage and figuring out what needed to be done. And and I was very happy a week and a half later to announce a $4.9 million grant from the federal government for Toms River to do beach replenishment. And it was a Sandy grant. It wasn't related to that storm per se, but we were able to get that done. So I'll leave Cape May to the folks down there, but I will keep fighting to make sure that that Ocean County is not forgotten, and we get every last person back home.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear, and thank you very much for all your help.
Okay, Russ. Thanks for the call.
Russ, thank you for your call. Yeah, it's still a chronic issue between rebuilding, elevating, knowing what your rates are going to be. There are so many issues.
There's a lot of
there's
a lot of
people
confusion.
still living on their couches.
And the rules keep changing with the flood maps and we don't have the time probably tonight to get into it, but there's a number of reforms, and I'm working to position myself to make those reform changes, because you got to be in the right place. And so I've been trying to get myself in a place where I can actually, when national flood comes up for renewal next year, I want to be where I can make some changes to it, because it's not working as it should.
Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Tom, my pleasure. Thank you.
As the Congressman, a presentation of Town Square Media New Jersey Shore News Group. Mark Anthony is our producer. Tom Tremblay and Bradley James provide the video and digital coordination. Our programming consultant is Steve Artolino. The director of Town Square Media New Jersey News Operations is Eric Scott. I'm Tom Mongelli, and thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week for Town Square Tonight.